I remember the exact moment my marriage began to quietly bleed from the inside out, not with a scream, not with a bang, but with the soft, casual flick of a name that didn't belong to me, like a stray ember drifting too close to a house soaked in gasoline. It was a regular Thursday night, the kind you don't think will matter. We were sprawled on the sectional, a Netflix thriller playing half-watched while Amanda scrolled her phone, legs curled beside mine. Candlelight bouncing shadows on the ceiling like it had so many nights before. I passed her the wine she liked, the one I picked up every Thursday without her asking, and just as I cracked a joke about the killer's terrible acting, she chuckled, leaned into my shoulder, and said, "Oh, come on, Chris, you'd be way worse in that role." The thing is, I laughed too, reflexively, politely, like when a stranger trips and you're not sure if it's funny or sad, so you just grin to be safe. But deep inside, I felt something unnatural stir in my chest, like someone had taken a scalpel to the edge of something sacred and pressed a little too hard. She didn't even seem to notice. No correction, no flinch, not even the faintest pause to register the fact that Chris was a name I hadn't heard in our home, in our 15 years together, in all the dinners, fights, and makeups that defined us. Just Chris, unbothered, unannounced, and devastating in its casual arrival. I watched her sip her wine, eyes fixed on the screen, as if she hadn't just triggered the silent countdown to the death of everything we built. I didn't ask about it that night. I didn't accuse her, or press her, or even mention it at all. Maybe I was too afraid of the answer, or maybe, deep down, some part of me knew that if I asked who Chris was, I wouldn't get the truth. Not yet. That moment, that single, throwaway second, split my reality into two timelines, the one where I was still her husband, and the one where I became the fool in his own house. And while she smiled at the screen and rested her head on my chest like nothing had changed, I stared past the flickering TV light, quietly beginning to map out how I'd find out the truth and what I would do when I finally did. I didn't sleep that night, not really, and it wasn't because I drank too much wine or because the movie was too loud or even because Amanda had curled up beside me the way she always did, pressing her cheek into my shoulder like we were still 25 and unbreakable. It was because a name, that one stupid name, kept echoing in my head like a drip from a leaking pipe in a silent house, slow, rhythmic, impossible to ignore once you hear it. Chris. It wasn't just the mistake, it was the ease, the casual slip of it, like second nature, and the way she didn't stutter, didn't blush, didn't even catch herself. That was what hit me like a gut punch, the familiarity. And so, while she drifted off into sleep and the glow of the TV faded into darkness, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan, my mind already spiraling into 100 ugly places I never imagined I'd go. By 3:17 a.m., I was scrolling Reddit on my phone with one hand while the other was clenched into a fist under the blanket, reading threads I never thought I'd read, r/surviving infidelity, r/relationship_advice, and even the brutal honesty of r/cheating_ stories. And what terrified me more than anything was how familiar it all started to feel. These weren't just random strangers describing abstract problems. They were me, or at least versions of me, good men, working men, fathers, husbands who thought they were doing everything right while their wives were getting railed by gym trainers, coworkers, just friends, or exes they swore they never talked to anymore. I found myself dissecting every conversation Amanda and I had over the past 3 months, looking for patterns, looking for holes, remembering all those little girls' nights, and "I'm too tired" excuses, and how she'd started showering before bed instead of in the morning, and suddenly it all felt less like coincidence and more like choreography. The worst part, the part that truly broke something in me, was realizing that I was becoming that guy. The guy who still brings home flowers just because, who grills steaks while his wife texts some other man from the patio, who smiles through family barbecues while the whole neighborhood knows he's the punchline to a joke he hasn't figured out yet. I felt shame creep into my bones like mold, not because I did anything wrong, but because something told me I might be the last one to know I was being played. And in that moment, lying in the dark while Amanda softly breathed beside me, I made a quiet vow to myself. This ends one of two ways. I find the truth, or I lose my mind trying. It started with the gym, like it always does in these stories, that beautiful, stupid place where people go to get healthier but some go to get away, and Amanda, suddenly, couldn't get enough of it. Now, for context, she's never been lazy, but she also wasn't exactly a fitness freak either. For most of our marriage, the treadmill was more of a laundry rack than an exercise tool, and our idea of cardio was a long walk through the farmer's market every Sunday. But out of nowhere, she's going 5 nights a week. Not just going, staying late, showering there, coming home already fed and exhausted, mumbling something about team-building workouts with her coworkers, which apparently involved smoothies and circuit training and burnout sessions. I never got a clear explanation for. I asked once, lightly, just to feel out the edges of the story, and she snapped back with a defensive, "What? Am I not allowed to want to look good anymore?" From that night forward, I stopped asking. I started listening instead. I started watching. I opened the Notes app on my phone and kept track of every excuse, every late meeting, every detail she let slip, because liars always leave a breadcrumb trail, especially the kind who think they're too clever to get caught. Tuesday, she said the gym was packed, but I drove by after work and counted 3 cars in the parking lot. Thursday, she said she stayed late to help Melissa with her squats, but Melissa posted an Instagram story at a wine bar across town at the same time. The following week, Amanda left the house in yoga pants at 6:30 p.m. and came home at 9:40, hair wet, smiling like a teenager in love. When I asked if the gym had a new sauna or something, she blinked twice too fast, smiled too wide, and said, "Oh, they added eucalyptus steam. It's amazing." Something was happening. I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was observing it in real time, like watching a spider spin its web across a corner of your ceiling, knowing it's going to drop, but not sure when or where. She didn't even realize I was already preparing, setting traps in silence, hiding cameras behind books on the shelf, checking mileage logs and receipts she didn't think I noticed. I was building a case, because this wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was about disrespect, the kind that seeps in slowly, disguised as independence, wrapped in pretty lies about self-care and me time, when really, it's about attention and thrill and the sick little addiction of getting away with it. She thought she was pulling off the perfect heist. What she didn't know was I had already started locking every exit behind her. There's something deeply unsettling about how easy it is to spy on the person you love, or at least, used to love, before they turned into someone you don't recognize anymore. I always imagined that if I ever got to this point, it would feel like a betrayal on my part, that crossing this line would make me the villain in my own story. But when you've been lied to with a straight face enough times, when you've sat across the dinner table from someone rehearsing affection while deleting texts under the table, that moral high ground just crumbles beneath your feet. I went to an electronics store on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, paid cash for a palm-sized magnetic GPS tracker that didn't need professional installation, and picked up a prepaid burner phone from the next aisle over like I was buying gum. Just 20 minutes of quiet shopping, and I had everything I needed to monitor my wife like a private investigator or a suspicious husband on the edge of losing his mind. Later that night, while Amanda was in the shower, which, lately, had become longer and steamier for no reason other than, I assumed, to wash off guilt, I slipped into the garage and attached the GPS under her rear bumper. I did it with shaking hands, but not because I was nervous about getting caught. It was the realization that this was my marriage now, this sad, cold war of secrets and surveillance. The phone cloning came next. I waited until she fell asleep, then crept downstairs, grabbed her purse, and used a tool I'd downloaded to duplicate her SIM and messaging data to the burner I'd prepped in advance. It took less than 10 minutes. 10 minutes to pierce through every veil of privacy she thought she had. 10 minutes to turn suspicion into certainty, or so I thought. The moment the interface lit up and her messages started syncing, I felt a pit open in my stomach that I couldn't describe. Not because I'd hacked her world, but because nothing was locked. No passwords. Like she didn't even care if I found out, like she believed I was too blind or too trusting to ever dare look. Over the next few hours, I scrolled through her messages like a man reading the final chapter of a book he'd unknowingly starred in. Conversations full of emojis, late night, can't stop thinking about you texts, inside jokes that clearly didn't belong to us, and little phrases like same time Thursday and bring that shirt I like, that stabbed deeper than any confession ever could. She was clever, sure, kept things vague, used no names, but the tone was unmistakable. You know the way someone talks when they're in love. And that wasn't my language anymore. I stared at her contact list and realized something else, something worse. There was no Chris. Which meant whoever she was talking to was under a different name entirely. Maybe even one of my friends. And just like that, the game shifted. Now I wasn't just tracking a cheater. I was hunting a ghost hiding inside my life. The first time the GPS betrayed her wasn't even dramatic. It didn't beep or flash or send me into a panic. It just pinged, quietly, like it had every other night that week, except this time, Amanda wasn't at the gym like she claimed, And she wasn't at the office like her text said either. No, she was at a boutique hotel across town. The kind you don't notice unless you're trying to hide in plain sight. Expensive, but not flashy. Elegant, but not somewhere married couples go unless they're rekindling something or killing it off entirely. I sat in my truck a block away, watching the blue dot on the burner phone just sit there, motionless for nearly 2 hours, and I don't know how long I stared at it before the truth finally hit me. My wife wasn't networking with her team, and she definitely wasn't pushing herself through squats or steam rooms. She was in bed with someone else, and I was watching it happen on a $60 screen I bought at Walmart. What made it worse, what made it real, was the camera footage that followed 2 days later. I had planted a tiny motion-activated lens inside the duffel bag she always left in her trunk, the one she took with her every workout night. I didn't expect much. Maybe a shot of her texting while parked, or a few seconds of someone slipping into the passenger seat. But what I got was something else entirely. Her and him, arms around each other in the dim light of that same hotel parking lot, laughing like high schoolers, kissing like they were proud of it, like they had all the time in the world and no one to answer to. There was one clip, just 5 seconds long. That tore something loose in my chest. She reached up, fixed his collar, and said something I couldn't hear, but I didn't need audio to know the tone. It was tender. It was how she used to talk to me. And that was just the beginning. Over the next week, I gathered more evidence than I ever wanted, screenshots of dinner reservations under a fake name, Uber drop-offs in parts of town Amanda never had reason to visit, and a photo from her own camera roll that she forgot to delete. Her feet, the red polish I knew by heart, crossed over crisp white hotel sheets, champagne glass in hand, someone else's leg beside hers. I stared at that picture for a long time. Not because I was shocked anymore. I wasn't. But because that was the moment I stopped feeling pain and started feeling calm. And in that eerie calm, something changed. I realized I wasn't just going to catch her. I was going to destroy her carefully built fantasy, piece by piece, starting with the man she thought she was lying to. Because that man, he wasn't her husband anymore. He was me, and I was done being blind. There's a specific kind of cold that hits when you realize the betrayal goes beyond bodies and into bank accounts. When love isn't just drained from your marriage, but siphoned from your wallet while you're too busy fixing faucets and mowing the lawn to notice what's really bleeding out. I was never the type to hover over our finances. Amanda handled most of the day-to-day bills while I focused on the business and the mortgage. But something didn't sit right when I opened our joint statement one night just to check the utilities and noticed a recurring $600 transfer to an account I didn't recognize. At first, I told myself it could have been a subscription, maybe tuition savings, or even some retirement thing I forgot we'd set up. But when I logged into our online banking and clicked through Amanda's profile, what I found made my stomach turn so fast I thought I might puke right there in my workshop. She had opened a separate checking account under her maiden name, not even hidden, just quiet, and had been moving money into it every week for nearly 6 months. The savings we'd been stacking to remodel the kitchen, to fix the back deck, to finally take that trip to Maine she kept pretending to care about. All of it rerouted, repurposed, rebranded into her own private escape fund. And if that wasn't enough, there was a scanned application for a rental property dated 2 weeks earlier, a lease agreement partially filled out with only her name, and a note from a real estate agent about timing the sale post-renovation for market peak. I sat there staring at the screen, realizing the scope of it all. She wasn't just cheating. She was leaving. She was building her new life in secret, right under my roof, and had every intention of cashing out, taking her half of our house, and vanishing into some shiny new world with a man who probably didn't even know the color of her toothbrush. The part that broke me, not made me angry, but broke me, was knowing I was never part of that plan. The sucker who she'd kiss goodnight while dreaming about countertops in some downtown condo, paid for with the wages of a man who'd given her his 20s, 30s, and every morning coffee since. But that was when something inside me, whatever part of me was still clinging to the memory of who we used to be, finally went dark. Because now, I wasn't just watching the storm roll in. I was going to become it. And Amanda? She wouldn't even hear the thunder until it was far too late. The easy thing would have been to explode, to smash a hole through the drywall, to confront Amanda in the kitchen over a half-cooked dinner and watch the fake innocence fall apart in real time. But anger, I realized, was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. Not if I wanted to win. Not if I wanted to walk away from this nightmare with my dignity intact and her perfect little escape plan burning in a pile of ashes behind me. So, I did something harder. I stayed calm. I closed the laptop, washed the bitterness out of my throat with a glass of water, and when Amanda came home later that night with her gym bag and that same fake glow on her cheeks, I kissed her on the forehead like I hadn't just uncovered the biggest betrayal of my life. I tucked every rage-fueled thought into a locked box inside my chest, and instead of lashing out, I smiled. I made her coffee the next morning. I asked about her day. I even massaged her shoulders when she complained about being so sore from her team-building circuits. It made my skin crawl, but I played my part, because the best revenge requires patience. The very next day, while she thought I was at the office overseeing a roofing contract, I sat in a polished chair in a family law office. My foot tapping against marble floors as I slid every piece of evidence across the table to a woman who could have been anyone's aunt, except for the fire behind her eyes when she saw the files. Photos, GPS logs, cloned messages, bank transactions, copies of rental agreements. I handed it over like a soldier laying down weapons, and to her credit, my attorney didn't sugarcoat it. "You have enough to bury her," she said without blinking, and hearing those words, cold, clinical, inevitable, sent a strange sort of electricity through my veins. We mapped out the plan meticulously. Immediate filing under grounds of adultery, preemptive financial locks on our accounts, preservation orders to freeze assets, and a strategy to ensure that when Amanda finally realized the ship was sinking, there wouldn't be a single lifeboat left in sight. And so, for the next few weeks, I lived a double life inside my own home, every smile rehearsed, every laugh manufactured, every touch a silent middle finger to the woman who thought she was fooling me. I became the perfect husband, the doting partner she would never suspect was secretly constructing her downfall, while behind the scenes, I stacked the ammunition higher and higher, one text, one deposit slip, one candid hotel photo at a time. It wasn't easy, every night, staring across the dinner table at the woman I used to dream about growing old with. It took everything in me not to reach across and demand answers. But I wasn't stupid. I knew real revenge wasn't about screaming matches or tearful confrontations. It was about waiting until every piece was perfectly placed, and when the time came, flipping the whole board over and leaving her wondering when and how everything she thought she controlled turned to dust in her hands. There's a very specific silence that falls over a room when people are watching something they know they shouldn't be seeing, a kind of sharp, electric stillness that feels like it could shatter the air itself. I got to watch that silence bloom firsthand the night of Amanda's birthday party, the night I gave her a gift she would never forget and could never undo. I planned it carefully, rented out the banquet room at her favorite Italian restaurant, invited her parents, her sister, a few of her closest friends, even some of our old neighbors, because if Amanda was going to lie to the people who loved her, it was only fitting that those same people got to see the truth served on a silver platter. I spent days putting together the slideshow, sweet pictures of us on vacations, goofy snapshots from backyard barbecues, photos of family holidays, everything stitched together with soft music and heartfelt captions. I wanted her relaxed. I wanted her beaming, soaking in every drop of admiration from her audience before the real show began. The slideshow started exactly as planned. Amanda sat at the center table, one hand over her mouth, the other clutching my forearm as old memories flickered across the big screen. Guests stabbed their eyes, chuckled, clapped at the right moments. I stood beside the laptop in the corner, pretending to watch while my heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought I might pass out. And then, at exactly the 6-minute mark, the photo shifted. At first, it was subtle, an unfamiliar hotel lobby, a blurry shot of Amanda laughing with a man no one recognized. The music stuttered, then stopped entirely. The room, full of smiles seconds earlier, fell into a dead, brittle hush as the next images rolled in. Amanda wrapped around that man in the parking lot, Amanda kissing him outside a restaurant she swore she hated, Amanda slipping into a hotel room. His hand pressed against the small of her back like he owned her. Whispers broke out first, sharp and confused, but then came the gasps, and not from strangers, but from people who had loved her, trusted her, defended her. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Amanda sat frozen in her chair, face draining of color faster than any words could have managed, her mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled too fast from deep water. She turned toward me, eyes wild, but I didn't give her the satisfaction of a scene. I simply lifted a small manila envelope from the table, the divorce papers, already signed and ready, and placed them neatly in front of her as if setting down a birthday card. I think that was the moment she realized the depth of it, that this wasn't rage or impulse or some drunken mistake. This was cold, calculated, and final. As her family stared at her in stunned, horrified silence, I walked out of that restaurant into the cool night air, my heart pounding with a strange new rhythm, not pain, not regret, but freedom. And it tasted better than anything that sad little birthday cake ever could have. The moment that manila envelope hit the table, everything Amanda thought she knew about how this story would end shattered like a cheap wine glass hitting a stone floor, and I saw it happen in real time, that flicker of desperate calculation flashing across her face, followed almost immediately by something colder, something uglier. Panic. I didn't stop to savor it. There was too much left to do, and I had already wasted enough years giving her the benefit of the doubt. So while her friends awkwardly excused themselves and her family stared at her like they didn't know the woman sitting in front of them, I calmly turned on my heel and walked out of the restaurant into the night air, pulling my phone from my jacket pocket before the door had even swung closed behind me. By the time Amanda stumbled outside, shrieking my name in the parking lot like some soap opera villain trying to rewind the plot, I had already made the first call to my lawyer, triggering the cascade of legal maneuvers we had spent weeks preparing with the precision of a military strike. Within 24 hours, every joint account was frozen, every credit card canceled, every asset legally flagged, the house, the vehicles, the retirement funds, with motions filed to prevent her from draining or touching a single cent without both our signatures. She had no access to my checking account, no keys to the safe, and most importantly, no idea that her secret nest egg, the separate account she'd been so carefully feeding with my money for months, had already been subpoenaed and flagged for the divorce proceedings. She wouldn't be using that to run off into the sunset with her gym buddy or whoever the hell Chris really was. The look on her face when the bank denied her card for a $5 coffee at the local cafe, according to one of her old friends who decided I deserved the update, was apparently priceless. And the house, the one she had wanted to sell, split the profits from, and used to finance her new start, stayed exactly where it belonged, with me. After the attorney leveraged her adultery and financial mismanagement to file under grounds that left her no footing for negotiations, Amanda tried everything after that: tears, rage, threats, empty promises whispered through trembling lips, but it was far too late for redemption. She wasn't just losing a marriage, she was losing the comfort, the security, and the future she had gambled away without ever thinking the man she betrayed might be smart enough and strong enough to beat her at her own game. When the dust finally settled and the ink dried on the final decree, Amanda didn't walk away with half. She walked away with nothing but a mountain of debt in her name, a ruined reputation, and a one-bedroom rental she could barely afford on a salary that didn't seem nearly as glamorous without my steady paychecks backing it. Meanwhile, I walked back into the house I built with my own two hands, poured myself a glass of good whiskey, and smiled for the first time in months. Not because I had won, but because I had finally, completely, freed myself from the last lie she ever told me. It's a strange thing, waking up one morning and realizing the anger, the heartbreak, the crushing sense of betrayal that once consumed every waking moment has simply evaporated, leaving behind something sharper, cleaner, almost beautiful in its finality. In the months after the divorce papers were finalized and Amanda's carefully curated fantasy life came crashing down around her, I didn't just survive, I thrived. I took the time I used to waste questioning her every excuse and poured it into myself, my home, my business, rebuilding not just what she had tried to tear apart, but also the parts of me I hadn't even realized I had neglected for so long. I started hitting the gym regularly, not for revenge or some hollow look what you lost transformation, but because I wanted to feel strong again, inside and out. I reconnected with old friends, real friends, the kind Amanda had subtly pushed out of my life over the years under the guise of they're a bad influence, or we're just too busy. I started traveling too. Nothing extravagant, just small road trips to places I always wanted to see, but never did because she wasn't into it. Every mile put more distance between me and the man who once sat awake at 3 a.m. wondering what he had done wrong. Meanwhile, Amanda's fairy tale fell apart faster than even I could have predicted, though I can't say I didn't enjoy watching it from a polite distance. Turns out Chris, or whatever his real name was, wasn't exactly eager to play stepdad to a broke, scandal-stained ex-wife with no home, no savings, and no more shine left on her act. According to mutual acquaintances, The ones who chose to stay loyal to the truth instead of loyalty to a liar. He ghosted her less than 2 months after the final decree was signed, blocking her on everything, leaving her sobbing to anyone who would still take her calls. Word got around our old circle that Amanda was bouncing between friends' couches. Her job demoted her after the scandal tainted her reputation, and the landlord of the little apartment she scraped together was already threatening eviction over late rent. Every piece of her life she had gambled with such reckless arrogance had slipped through her fingers like dust, and for the first time in years, it wasn't my problem to fix. The last time I saw her, and believe me, it was not intentional, was at the grocery store a few weeks ago. She looked tired, smaller somehow, weighed down not by time, but by consequence. She opened her mouth like she might say something, some hollow apology or pathetic attempt to rewrite history, but I didn't give her the chance. I just nodded, a polite, indifferent nod, and walked right past her, my cart full of steak, bourbon, and freedom. And in that moment, in that quiet, ordinary aisle, I realized the truth Amanda had never understood. You can lie to someone's face for years, you can steal their trust, their money, their time, but you can't steal their self-respect once they decide to take it back. I wasn't her victim anymore. I was my own man again, and I've never felt lighter.